The FBI is conducting a terror investigation into the shooting of two National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. So far, investigators have searched multiple properties, including the suspect's home in Washington state. Neighbors there expressing their shock.
Out of nowhere, boom, and I go run to my window and I look and guns drawn.
Never really talked to any of them except the kids, telling the kids to quit running through the hallways and quit breaking stuff.
Investigators seizing electronics from the suspect's home. They interviewed his family as well, which the Trump administration, we have learned, is considering deporting. Now that at least one officer has died, the alleged shooter could also be hit with more serious charges. Joining us to discuss is Alyse Adamson, former federal prosecutor. Alyse, good to have you with us. So in terms of these charges, there is this possibility of a terrorism charge being tacked on here. And of course, the fact that one of these National Guard members has now died, that could change what we're looking at in terms of charges. What are you anticipating?
Yeah, thank you so much, Erica. So first of all, it's important to understand that terrorism itself is not a standalone charge. There are two ways to get to quote unquote terrorism charges. The first is very specific statutes that refer to terrorism, like material support to a terrorist organization or transcontinental terrorism. Usually what we're talking about, Erica, however, is a sentencing enhancement. That is when an underlying violent crime was committed with the intent to commit terrorism, which is a specific definition in the US Code. And then it opens up for stiffer penalties, such as the death penalty. So that's what Attorney General Pam Bondi was talking about in the press conference, that if they can prove that this act was committed with the intent to influence government policy, for instance, which is the definition of terrorism, then they could seek enhancements such as the death penalty. Right now, Erica, this is just a state case. The defendant has been charged with assault with intent to kill. Now with the death of this guardsman, it's going to be first-degree murder. So please expect to see the FBI seeking that federal hook, because it needs to be a federal crime to bring those terrorism charges in. We know we have interstate travel, and that is usually a federal hook. And so that is what the FBI is investigating right now.
And just remind us, too, because Washington, D.C. is not a state, right? It is set up differently. The way that cases are handled, the way that charges are filed is slightly different than what we would see, even with the involvement of the federal government in a state.
That's true. So DC has a very interesting legal system. They do have a local court system and they do have local law. Of course, the United States Attorney's Office prosecutes those cases as well, but they're filed in a different court. So right now, this case is still a local case. Assault with intent to kill is a local DC crime, but the same prosecutors who bring those charges can also bring federal charges in the federal courthouse. And so that is what we should be looking to see. Are they going to file these charges in the local DC Superior Courthouse or the district courthouse? And again, Erica, that is going to depend on the evidence. Do they have a federal hook? I like to say, think about Luigi Mangione, who killed CEO Brian Thompson last year. Mangione traveled interstate to commit the crime. He carried the gun interstate. He stalked Thompson on the computer and he used a cell phone. That is how they brought it into federal court. That is what we can expect to see in this case. That is what the FBI is investigating. So look to where this case is filed. Is it in DC Superior or is it in that federal courthouse? It's going to make a huge difference for both the charges and the penalty.
Yeah, a lot to watch for, that's for sure. Alyse, appreciate it. Thank you.